Hi there, my name is Nora Lee and I live in Ottawa, Ontario, near an urban forest called Carlington Woods, where we hope one day to stop the buckthorn. These woods are full of the invasive species known as common or European buckthorn. Since the 1800s, it has moved from being a shrub introduced by European settlers, mainly to make hedges, to taking over forests, woodlands, and meadows across much of eastern and central North America. In this presentation, I'd like to explain why this plant is a problem, what the Friends of Carlington Woods are starting to do about it, and how much we've gotten done so far. Carlington Woods is one of several urban forests in the city of Ottawa. It is described as an urban natural area, or UNA. UNAs, which include forests, woodlands, wetlands, meadows, or a combination, can be thought of as green infrastructure, which collectively provides society a multitude of economic, environmental, health, and social benefits. These are also known as ecosystem services. More specifically, ecosystem services include stormwater and temperature control, carbon and other pollutant sequestration, and providing habitat and food for a diverse range of native wildlife species, and also could be humans. As such, UNAs play a key role in adapting to and mitigating the impacts of climate change. The National Capital Commission, or NCC, estimated in a report in 2016 that the services provided by a forest were worth over $9,000 per hectare per year, which would come to almost $206,000 per year for the 22-hectare Carlington Woods. Besides these economic benefits, biologist Helly Bickerton noted in a 2020 report that forests and other green spaces offer opportunities for outdoor education, relaxation, and recreation, which in turn promote physical and mental health. They can also serve as safe spaces to promote a greater sense of inclusion in our communities. Now, to keep getting these services and benefits, we need to keep the forest healthy. Biodiversity is crucial for a healthy forest ecosystem, but biodiversity is threatened by invasive species, one of the greatest risks to biodiversity. In a forest, biodiversity is how many different species of animals, soil, microbes, bugs, trees, flowers, fish, fungi, etc. live there, as well as the interactions between the species and their environments, and for trees in particular, the age, height, and species. So to sustain this forest so that we can continue to gain the services and benefits, we need to protect the mature trees and ensure the conditions are in place for the next generation of trees to establish and grow. Some of the things we can do to assist with maintaining the forest include controlling invasive species, restoration of native species, and avoiding too many trails and off-trail use. This last is illustrated by this picture where in the Carlington Woods itself, where you can see that there is a lot of trail making here, and wherever there's trails, there are no plants. So what is buckthorn and why is it a problem? Most of the time in this talk, I'm referring to common or European buckthorn, the scientific name being Rhamnus cathartica. It is an understory shrub or small tree. In mid to late fall, it stands out quite well in Carlington Woods, as shown here, as it is still green, whereas the maples and most other deciduous trees and shrubs have turned color or dropped their leaves. This is one of the traits that actually gives common buckthorn a significant advantage in a landscape. You may have common buckthorn on your property, since it spreads easily by birds who have eaten the berries and excrete the seeds. You don't have to be right next to the woods to have one of these shrubs on your property. I should mention that there are other types of buckthorn, including another invasive species, glossy buckthorn, which we have less of in our woods, but it's still a concern, and we would deal with it as well. There's also a native species, alderleaf buckthorn, that has been seen here but is much more rare. Now, how do you know if that shrub you have is a European buckthorn? Here are a few ways to tell, although if you aren't sure, please don't cut something down without checking with a knowledgeable person. The leaves have characteristic veins that are relatively few and tend to the curved forward in parallel with the leaf edge. The mature leaf edges are toothed and there is a sharp point at the tip. So that's the picture on the left. The new seedlings have these two double-lobed leaves when they first come up, and then start to produce more leaves and look like these plants in the middle. The upper right shows a branch with the very dark purple berries. These berries are not edible as they taste awful and cause a pretty strong catharsis or diarrhea. When there are no leaves, some traits to look for are the thorns with a leaf bud on each side that look like the cloved hoof of a deer with a thorn sticking out. It's not the greatest picture, but that's the one on the left. The mature bark is quite black and heavily ridged or curling away from the trunk as shown in the middle photo, while a younger stem has a shinier gray bark with horizontal, lighter, elongated spots. So what is it about buckthorn that makes it harmful in the North American woods? As I already mentioned, how the plant holds its leaves late into the fall is one way. It also leaves out earlier than native species. Both of these traits give it an advantage by not letting sunlight reach smaller plants, including seedlings of other trees and shrubs. There is also some evidence that it secretes chemicals that inhibit the growth of other plants nearby, called allelopathic chemicals. Because it can take advantage of more sun and an earlier start, it tends to hog the water and soil nutrients through its fine and dense root system. It also produces a large number of seeds that have a high germination rate. All these features allow it to outcompete native species. As a result, the natural forest structure is disrupted and there's a dramatic reduction in species diversity. So now I'm coming to what the Friends of Carlington Woods are doing. I also want to note here that we are doing this with the permission and support of the National Capital Commission, which owns the part of the woods we are working in. This satellite view from Google shows Carlington Woods, which I've outlined in pink, and the small section next to Clyde Avenue with the curved line. Within the curved yellow line is where we have started to clear out the buckthorn and the invasive honeysuckle, which I haven't mentioned up till now, but it is there waiting for the buckthorn to go in order to take over. We estimate the size of that small area as 0.26 of a hectare, or about 0.64 of an acre. So it's a small area on the map, but it looks big to us. The first step is to remove the plants, starting with the mature females if working in a large area. This reduces the amount of seed entering the area in future years. There are a variety of methods for doing this. What we have used includes pulling them out, root and all, out of the ground, either by hand when they are small or with a tool such as this plant puller on the left when they are bigger. There are a few different brands of that type of tool. In the center, we also are showing that we've cut down trees to a low stump and covered the stump with a thick plastic where you can use other barriers so that they can't get the light to start sprouting again. And on the right is an illustration of another method, which is to cut the trees back to about 3 or 4 feet at 2 key points in their growth cycles, and this process is called critical period cutting. By the way, we do not have permission to use herbicides, so we have not used them, although when used properly, they are safe and effective. A little more about the critical period cutting. The plants are first cut when they have just finished leafing out in the spring or a few weeks before they drop their leaves in the fall. By doing this, we take away the nutrient resources of the plant just after it has expended what was stored in the roots in the spring, and just before it fully draws down the nutrients from the leaves in the fall. The roots become depleted of resources by this approach. Then, in the following spring and fall, the shoots that the plant puts out are cut down at the same times of year. This procedure has been found to kill the plant within a couple of years. Now, these pictures show how the stumps look when the plant has sent up the new shoots. This past year, we spent a lot of time deburying the branches that we removed after the fruit had matured. So we started before the fruit had matured later in the summer, but gradually there were more and more mature berries. So we felt we had to remove them and take them out of the woods as shown, although we also piled some into bins and are leaving those in place to let them basically lose their viability. We're planning to take a different approach in 2025 though, and leave the branches with berries in piles where any that sprout will mostly sprout in situ and can be fairly easily pulled out. So then we piled all the branches we cut, either to be mulched by a crew that the NCC sent to us, or we made a few habitat piles within the woods. Habitat piles are constructed in a specific way to optimize their use by various forest creatures. Once the area is largely cleared of buckthorn, then we replant. So far we have either planted shrubs and trees or spread native grass and wildflower seeds. What you see here is what has largely grown up on its own after we cleared one small area near a pollinator garden to limit the deposit of buckthorn seed in that garden. Luckily, there was quite a bit of goldenrod and aster seed in the soil because we didn't have very much new seed to add. This is where we also planted shrubs and some trees. This fall, 2024, is the first time we have spread wild ryegrass seed mixed with some native wildflowers with the aim of outcompeting the buckthorn seedlings that we can expect to otherwise sprout in the spring. We will be monitoring the results of that approach compared to an area where we just spread the mulch from the chipped buckthorn and another area where we are just removing the buckthorn by hand to see which of these may be the best balance between effort and effectiveness. So we'll need to keep removing buckthorn in the areas we've already worked in for a few years, we expect, while also continue to advance across the area that we've scoped out for our current project, as I showed you earlier with that yellow curved line on the map. Now here the satellite view shows where we worked in 2024 and the rate of advance during the summer and fall, starting from the bottom of the graphic. So the lowest line shown here is in August, and the pink line is late in October. So in that time, we cut down just about all the females and a lot of other plants in almost half the area we were working in. Given that we will not spend time deburying this coming year, I expect we'll be able to complete the removal of buckthorn in the rest of this area. The dark pink curved line roughly follows a dirt footpath through the woods. Also, just wanted to note we did scan for bird nests and found none in these trees. Briefly, I'll mention that we have other invasive plants in Carlington Woods, and we need to be watchful that removing the buckthorn doesn't encourage these to spread further. This is why we are removing invasive honeysuckles we come across it, as it would take over from the buckthorn if we didn't. Here I am illustrating creeping bellflower, garlic mustard with and without flowers, one species of invasive honeysuckle, and the dreaded European swallowwort or dog strangling vine. another neighbor and friend of the woods is attacking this last plant in nearby areas of the woods to the west and north of our project area. On one of our last buckthorn cutting days, we assembled a number of our volunteers for a super photo, thanks to Camille Salon Miller, the daughter of one of our volunteers. These people include volunteers who've helped with the pollinator garden starting a few years ago, and up until people who just started to join us to cut down buckthorn. Now, there are some good resources online, and I'll put the links to these in the notes below the video. Thank you so much for your kind attention. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can use the email shown here, cccpollinator@gmail.com. Myself and Sharon Body are the co-leads on this project, and there's an accompanying video by Paul Richer, which will be associated with this presentation as well on our YouTube channel. I'd like to thank all those volunteers and our partnerships with the Friends of Cronton Woods in Hampton Park, Tree Fest Ottawa, and the National Capital Commission. Thanks again for listening.